Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I am Dr. Andrew Scaff. He is Dr. Michael Werman, Esquire. We're here today to talk about more NFL games over the last week. Week 13 is now in the books. We'll get to our picks, recap our picks from last week, and we'll take a little preview of next week's week 14 in the NFL. And a little bit more about the Royals and their Rule 5 draft and their not so good draft order that was selected for them in the MLB lottery. But we'll start today's show in a little bit different place than we normally talk about anyway. The college football playoff teams have been determined. Mike, Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Alabama have made the CFP in that order. Did the committee get it right? Or do you think Florida State should have made it as an undefeated Power 5 conference team? Or even Georgia with a one loss, but also from the SEC, just outside. Do you think the committee got the selection right?
In one sense, maybe, but not in the way I would have wanted it. I would have wanted just to keep Alabama out and just make Alabama mad and the SEC out.
No.
Because, well, Texas beat the SEC champion, so why?
It's already decided.
It's already been decided, and Florida State hasn't lost. And by in a month or something like that, their at least their original backup quarterback would probably be healthy. Their defense played well. I saw a meme about poor quarterback play holding back Florida State, and there's something about, I think Greg McElroy, the former Alabama quarterback, is now like a college analyst, and that's why he said that Florida State should not have been selected, and there was something about, poor quarterback play didn't hold back Alabama for winning a national championship when McElroy was the quarterback. Famously, when wasn't that the year that LSU played Alabama and all they scored were field goals? I think it was like a rematch of LSU Alabama in the BCS championship game.
Yeah.
But I would have liked to have seen them stick it to Alabama and Georgia both and keep them both out. I don't think Georgia was as good as they were the last couple of years, and I don't think Alabama was as good as they've been in the past either. So I wouldn't have, of course now probably Alabama's going to win the whole thing and it's going to look smart, but I hope
they dropped their game early in the year. It was before the conference season started, and their only loss was to another team that's also in the CFP. So
I hope Michigan rolls Alabama. That would be the best result possible.
That'd be ideal, I think, for the committee too, probably. But also, they may have set that up purposely because maybe they want Michigan to lose. So.
Yeah, because of the whole defensive sign stealing thing of Harbaugh. Maybe Harbaugh's going to jump ship and go to the NFL or something. Go to coach the Chargers or something like that. That's where back in San Diego, that's where Jim Harbaugh started. I think his head coaching career was at the University of San Diego. So maybe he'll go back to. Oh, I guess it's Los Angeles Chargers now. They aren't San Diego Chargers anymore, but he'll go back to Southern California.
Yeah.
They're still the San Diego Chargers to me. It's so stupid that they moved.
I still think of them as the Chargers, San Diego. Yeah.
Nobody likes them in Los Angeles. They are and nobody likes them in San Diego now either. So they just don't really have a fan base, and they've been kind of cursed since they left. Especially they've had very, very talented teams and not done very well. But I guess back to the college. Yeah. Do you think they did the right thing? Do you think Florida State should have been kept out?
This is where they should have expanded the playoff to more teams already instead of having waiting for like a few more years before they
that's
one of the larger tournament anyway. But yeah, because I mean the whole point of the CFP was to try to avoid having a no loss conference champion team being left out of this final tournament, and that's kind of the whole point of its existence, was to make sure that didn't happen, and then they made it happen in this one. So it's a little weird that it did happen, but I mean you kind of see how it works though too. Florida State probably was the weakest of those group, But you'd also like to see Georgia, as a defending champion, be in the tournament also, which is the other like disappointing thing, at least anyway. So, but if they would have won their at the SEC championship game, then this wouldn't be happening now either. So,
Well, Florida State would still be out in favor probably of Texas, and people would be upset that Texas was in it. Of course,
yeah,
this was never a really good plan because there were five major the Power Five, and there were only four spots, so there could be five
yeah,
undefeated teams, and one team was going to get left out. So I think that was
yeah.
kind of dumb. But I think, especially when they say, well, we think that it's better to have more teams, but we're going to wait a few more years to implement it. I think
That's what I don't get. Like, you made the
why not
decision
just
and just go and implement it. Yeah,
why not? Well, like we need all these logistical things, or like I don't think they really do. They schedule other football games, and they schedule NFL playoff games, like a few days ahead of time because
basically on the fly.
you don't know where they're gonna be, things like that. So
Yeah.
it's not like it's that difficult to do,
You just
and
need the business guys and the attorneys to sit down and get everything
and you could just
finalized.
have and you could have those first round games at home team sites
Sure.
wanted.
Or
And
maybe like just the top, four teams get home games and everybody else plays on neutral sites, which they already have like the neutral site locations set for like
yeah.
the playoff games, the top two, the two games that are being played as the playoff games, right?
Yeah,
If you
so
get two more, it's just like, okay, well, like the middle two sets of teams would play on those neutral sites, and then like the number one and number two teams play on their home sites, and then you don't even have to have any additional sites finalized because those stadiums already exist for the home team. So,
yeah, you would have to. I guess it'd be if you expand it to eight, you could expand it to eight intermediately, and
right. So you'd say
because
like Michigan and Washington would get home games, and then the 3 and 4 seeds, like in this case Texas and Alabama, they would play at wherever those playoff sites that are already chosen for the CFP games. They would use those two sites, right?
yeah,
And be the home team, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, who we don't have, finalized because they don't pick those, but they would, face whoever their opponents were at those, whichever of those home teams are there, right? So,
do you have a prediction? Which teams do you think are gonna win?
uh,
Again?
I think I fully expect Alabama to beat Michigan just because that's what we see every year. Alabama sneaks in and they end up winning it. For the Washington Texas, I don't really know which way that one's going to go. Maybe I mean I'll lean Texas because they're Big 12, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would like to see Michigan Texas in the final. I don't know if Washington's really that good. They had
Yeah.
maybe Oregon a couple of times, but that was they didn't really play a lot of teams outside of their conference. So it's hard to say how good Washington really is. Maybe they're really good. Maybe they'll roll Texas, and maybe they'll roll Michigan or Alabama. But I
Yeah.
think, um,
Well,
yeah,
they were relatively large underdogs against Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game, and they won handily though. So even though they'd already beaten Oregon once, and yeah,
yeah,
that was strange.
yeah. I guess I thought it was a fluke the first time. Maybe they thought of Washington as a little bit like Colorado or something, where they had a early success and wouldn't be able to sustain it.
Yeah. So maybe staying in college football, but like one other little story that popped up this week. There was a relatively large number of people that have entered the uh, the transfer portal this year. Would you have a guess as to how many people have entered the transfer portal this year in college sports?
In college sports in general, or
I think
just
it's for all
football?
college sports. It must
I
be. It's got to be because the number is relatively
insanely
large.
high. So it's like I would say maybe 500, but it's probably going to be higher than that.
It's a lot higher. Like many times higher.
So this is like every college athlete wants to go to a different school because I think it's the NIL deals that really fuel
Um,
the idea that we can get more, endorsement money for my name, image, and likeness at school X than they can here at school Y, and I don't know if it's really the case or not, but I think it's just people chasing it, and it's maybe even more important than playing time. uh, is uh, is now. It's just you can kind of get more money from some local car dealership or local small business or something like that, which is really what most of these deals do. And they don't make a lot of, like, most of the players don't get a whole lot out of it, but some of them get quite a bit. But it seems like every Ohio State player seems like they're transferring um, through the portal, but I don't know if something's going on in Ohio State simply because they lost to Michigan a couple of times, or is Ryan Day maybe not very well liked.
Yeah.
So how many are transferring?
The headline said nearly 3,000,
3,000.
but and then I finally opened the actual article. It says, and this is just the 30-day winter transfer portal. And it says that more than 1,000 players officially entered the transfer portal on Monday. So maybe the headline was about for the full season, and this is just the winter transfer portal.
Hmm.
But still, 3,000 players. Do you think that is what they intended when they created the system to transfer from schools, to have that many players looking to move?
No, I don't think they could have. I think this is. I don't think they had thought about the NIL ramifications when
Because
they.
what that hadn't been passed yet at the point when
Yes,
that was created.
I think they just thought, well, people that are disgruntled, maybe want more playing time, or graduate transfer types people were thinking like that. They're gonna want to transfer more easily, and yeah, that it'll help them because we say, well, coaches can transfer kind of whenever they want, and switch jobs. Players should be able to do that too. And I think that seems to be what it probably really was about. But yeah, I think the NIL stuff is really
You're hoping it's like a relatively small number of people that are leaving one school to go to another, or unhappy with their school,
yeah.
not thousands of players
And
transfer.
you don't want them to sit. Yeah, they used to have to sit out a whole year when they
Right.
transferred, and now they can just play kind of immediately. So I think it also has led to more recruitment from schools to get people transferred in, transferred out. And I think this is something that again, I don't care for Deion Sanders's tactics very much. So that this is kind of made for his kind of wheeling and dealing. Let's promise a ton to people and then under deliver, and then they're gonna leave the next year because they're disappointed. And
No.
but we can still get in rubes that think they're gonna really succeed and make tons of money. Then they find out they don't. Well, they're gonna transfer again,
Yeah.
and the cycle will just repeat itself.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I see it.
It's a very cheery outlook on the whole.
Unfortunately, yeah, I think it's um I don't think it's good for I don't think it's really good for the sport, although you could say these are students can transfer whenever they want, so maybe athletes should be able.
You don't have to sit out academically for a year.
Yeah, and it just kind of shows a little bit what of a farce college athletics is, and how most of these I guess in a lot of sports they don't really use college in the way that the NFL and the NBA do. At least in this country, they use the college as a stepping stone to the pro leagues and the NBA. But in the NFL, college is the only game in town because there aren't any European or international players really
Right.
that are doing something else or playing in some sort of G League type of situation. It's all college.
Yeah.
Um,
There's XFL or the
yeah.
USFL.
But I don't I that seems to all be college players that they aren't like straight out of high school into those leagues. I don't think.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
true.
I think maybe you can in the G League or in some other leagues.
I think G League you can go right out of high school even, yeah. The NFL requires like 3 years in college to get, you know, to come
Yeah,
out early. It's only 1 year early as opposed to,
yeah. Or I
3 years
think you can
early
redshirt
in
and
high
then
school.
two after that. So
Yeah.
it's three after high school.
Yeah. But I mean, it's 3 years though, not
Yeah,
like you can't like bypass a year here or there. Yeah. At least, in basketball, it's just the one and dones, right? So
yeah. I guess, yeah, I don't know why that's. I guess that maybe I don't know. Yeah, LeBron James did okay going straight in, and Kevin Garnett did okay
Yeah,
going straight in, and Kobe Bryant did okay going straight in. So why are we making the?
yeah.
I guess there were some people that kind of burned out, but you still have those of the one and done
Well,
too.
I think, I mean, really, it's the league is trying to save the owners from spending a fortune on guys that aren't developed enough to succeed. So
Yeah,
it's like a protection of money. They don't care about the players, right?
yeah.
Yes.
Speaking
Was
of protection of money and not caring about the players, do you think that's what happened in the Chiefs Packers game on Sunday night, where the Chiefs perhaps were put it mildly not the beneficiaries of some great officiating, and they lost to the Green Bay Packers 27-19 on Sunday night in the cold, in the uh, not quite frozen tundra. What did you think? What did you think? What did you think of the Chiefs? Packers. Chiefs are now down to 8-4 on the season.
into the three spot out of the command of the playoff race for home field
Yes.
advantage in the bye.
Yeah, had they won, they would have been number one seed and could
Still, they would
have
have
destiny.
retained the one. Instead, now are 3 game behind two other teams with only 5 games to go. It's getting a little trickier, especially with Buffalo coming up next. Yeah, the outcome was very disappointing. I thought the Chiefs played pretty well as a whole. They had a couple drives stall that were, unfortunate, obviously, and they had some strange officiating early in the game, even that led to
Yeah,
stalled.
penalties on offensive linemen that weren't terribly strong. But you guys, you get that a lot anyway. But still, they didn't.
Yeah,
They weren't able to finish drives early. They were only able to get field goals. They were also weren't able to slow down Green Bay. They just kind of like Green Bay churn and drive through the whole. Like there was no time in the half. Like it was
yeah,
possession. They had two possessions that half, and then they were able to kneel it down. That was the first game this year where there were that few possessions in the first half.
and a half. Yeah.
Yes, so
Yeah,
uh,
I mean, it really pains me to say it, but I kind of feel obligated to, anyways. That yeah, LaFleur and Jordan Love actually had a good game plan, I think, to combat the Chiefs, their game plan, right? So like they actually played well enough to
yeah,
protect Love enough that he was able to complete relatively short passes, but keep drives moving, and it
he
wasn't
had a
an
couple
exciting
of
game by any mean, but
yeah,
they got the job done, and that's surprising to me even now, having seen the game and what especially after having watched Green Bay over the last season or two, really, of struggling.
yeah. He had a
Team
couple of very, I think, fortunate completions that really changed things. Like this kind of third and long, they kind of just threw up in the air, and of course his guy got it, and then he had that touchdown pass that really probably should have been deflected or intercepted by the one of the Chiefs, but it didn't. But I think it also shows you maybe how poor the Chiefs wide receivers are compared to the Packers young receivers. They have Romeo
Yeah,
Dobbs and Christian Watson, a couple and two or three. It seems like very good young receivers. Where the Chiefs have Rashee Rice and they don't really know how to use them, and then we're stuck with MVS and Sky Moore running after the ball, sort of, and knowing maybe where to go half the time. And
yeah,
that interception at the end was maybe a bad throw by Mahomes, but also maybe a bad route by Moore. It's hard to say. I think we looked at some stats, and I think Patrick Mahomes' quarterback rating when targeting Sky Moore is 50 this season,
yikes.
50.2 or something like that. And when he's targeting Rice, it's like 121. So, and Kelsey's over 100. It's the players that you think. Noah Gray is over 100, but like MVS is low, um, and
Tony and
Watson is pretty low.
Watson are somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah, Watson's kind of in the middle, I think. But yeah,
I think Tony was actually relatively high, right? But
Tony was like 80, but that was probably he's only been targeted a few times, and one of those was that
yeah,
pick six, where like if you take out that first game, he's probably been pretty good. It's only been short passes really to Tony, but yeah,
yeah,
I am a little bit pessimistic about the Chiefs' offense lately, and I hope they can I guess the whole season I've been a little bit pessimistic. They just haven't been the same under Matt Nagy, and maybe it's because they got lucky last year without really addressing the wide receiver issue. But
Yeah,
I think as much of it is scheme though, and there aren't very many easy throws that Mahomes can make. Like, you see Watson, you see Jordan Love making a lot of easy throws. You see Brock Purdy, especially, making a lot of easy throws and looking good. Jalen Hurts gets a lot of easy throws. But Mahomes, basically every completion to Mahomes, it's, hold the ball for a while and wait for Kelsey to do his magic, or it's like get the ball into a very tight window or a big, something like that. So it seems like you need it. It's reliant on a superhuman Mahomes, and when he's only adequate, the Chiefs aren't going to win,
yeah.
or it's up. They are only going to win some of the time rather than most of the time.
He's only just above average, not superhuman. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of that game, that was the final nail in the coffin in my terrible locks of the week. I was actually locked into that I guess that coffin, fulfilling that metaphor. Last week I went 0-3. You went 3-0. You're actually ahead of me now on the season. But I had Kansas City as they were 6.5 point favorites when I made the bet. In the end, they closed about 6 or 5.5, but they lost outright. So that was not a game where my bet was good. But how do you want to talk about you probably in the you're sitting pretty today. What was your first win of the week?
My first one, I had Detroit -4.5 at New Orleans. That game was pretty close, closer than I would have liked anyway. But the Lions did hold on 33-28, giving me that half-point cushion on my 4.5 point spread. So I'll take that win. But yeah, that was much closer than I thought it would be. Did you watch any of that game?
I saw some of it. Yeah, it was, yeah, but yeah,
It did essentially end on a 4th and 6 on the Detroit side of the field for New Orleans, unable to complete the drive.
yeah. So you pulled it out though, Dr. Scaff.
Yes.
I had I had a similar finish to one of my games where they couldn't, or both of my other games where the teams should have been able to pull it out but didn't. I had Denver. They were 3.5 point underdogs to Houston. They lost by 5. Russell Wilson led. They started out really poorly. It looked like Houston was going to blow out Denver in that first half, but then Denver kind of clawed their way back into it because I think Denver's a better team than Houston. But they couldn't. Their last drive stalled, and then they threw that intercept. Then Russell Wilson threw the interception in the end zone to seal it. They were down by 5, so they needed a touchdown to win. So had they just been able to kick the field goal to cover, I would have won. Just like in the other game, we'll talk about, if they'd been able to kick a field goal to cover, I would have won. But they needed touchdowns
Trying
instead.
to win. They weren't trying
Trying
to
to,
win your bet. They were
they
trying
weren't
to
trying to just cover the spread. Unfortunately, they weren't playing the Sean McVay long game that way. So yeah, Denver. I think lost 20. Was it 23-18? I think was the final, something like that.
yeah.
And
22-17.
22-17, 22-17. Excuse
Yeah.
me. Yeah, they lost by 5, and they were 3.5 point underdogs. So I missed that one by 1.5. So I was at least closer than my Chiefs Packers game, but it was,
You needed multiple touchdowns to cover that.
yeah, this was not a good week for me. How about continuing your strong week? What was your second win?
My second pick was Miami -9.5 at Washington, and that game was not very close. Miami won by 30 points, so covering by nearly 3 touchdowns. 45-15 was the final in that game. Washington's defense is pretty porous. Another big game from Tyreek Hill. Tua did enough by finding Tyreek Hill for multiple touchdowns and
Yeah,
very
those passes were terrible, but Hill was able to like slow down and get them or
right.
whatever he like he underthrew those balls so much, but because Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill and the Chiefs have Marcus Valdes-Scantling trying to track the ball,
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill could be like the best center fielder in baseball probably. MVS, wouldn't be able to, hold down an outfield position. He'd be a DH, given his lack of ball tracking ability.
Yeah.
Seems to be kind of what the difference is between the Royals' deep threat is somebody who can't kind of follow the ball. The same thing with Justin Watson, I think, isn't a very good ball tracker either.
He can
But
get open, but he can't always catch the
Ty
ball.
Moore can't do that either. Like he's not very good at that either. So, but Hill, that was maybe an underrated part of his game where he could catch anything. It didn't have to be a great throw to him.
And that's without being like a giant guy, like like Calvin Johnson did, where he'd like catch everything that was thrown his way. But he's giant too, so all I have to do is throw it like anywhere in the vicinity, he'll pull it down.
yeah.
Tyreek's much smaller than that.
Yeah, Hill might drop an easy pass and drop it into the hands of one of the defensive backs, but he was able to go up and get a lot of balls that
No.
you wouldn't think that he could, or he could easily slow down and stop and catch a bad pass.
Yeah.
Which is good because he has Tua as his quarterback, and Tua has kind of a noodle arm, so he's constantly kind of doing that. So, but yeah, when Miami wins, though, they really win big. It seems like a lot of the time. So, so maybe I don't. Do you have Miami? That I think they're favored by another double-digit spread this week, 13 and a half.
Almost 2 touchdowns. Yeah.
Are you on Miami?
I don't have him in my locks, but I will be picking on their side, I think, on the big board.
I'm not sure. I think probably two, but I'm not sure. You never know. I haven't. I've made this
Tennessee, isn't that who they're playing this week?
Yeah,
it's coming week. Yeah,
they're playing against Tennessee, 13.5-point favorites.
The
other double digit favorite is San Francisco. Did you bet on this? You bet on the game, but you did not bet on the spread. That was your third victory.
That's right.
San Francisco blew out Philadelphia. Was it 42-19?
42-19, yeah. So 61 points, yeah. And the over-under line was at 46.5, so comfortably over. San Francisco nearly got to the 46 themselves, so that really helps if you're betting overs, if one team does that much of the work, right?
Yeah, kind of the opposite of my last bet. I should have bet the under rather than betting on the spread. It was the Atlanta Jets game, 13-8, 21 total points in that debacle. Tim Boyle is now off the team entirely. He has been unceremoniously dropped. Who did the Jets bring in as their new quarterback? So it's going to be Zach Wilson starting again, but who did the Jets? They signed somebody.
Oh, they brought was it Simeon?
Oh, they brought Brett Rippon back.
Oh, Rippon. The other guy, yes. The other
yeah, also has an IEN in his Simeon has two, I believe, IENs.
Yes.
Simeon is I guess monkey-like in his last name, and Rippon is, I don't know what is that.
I don't know what, I'm not sure what
reptile like. I'm not sure, but Brett Rippon he's probably most famous for just being Mark Rippon's nephew, a decent quarterback for the Super Bowl winning then Washington Redskins back in the early 90s. But Brett Rippon, I think he had played poorly as Matthew Stafford's backup and started a game, and then he was on the Seattle practice squad and now is the new backup quarterback to the once and future starter Zachary Wilson in Jets land. So
there was a little controversy around that too, because it sounded like he maybe didn't want to rip.
I don't really care. I don't really want to start her anymore because it's I just get yelled at and so why?
It was a really strange set of stories that came out of that.
And that it makes you wonder: is Robert Saleh is his job in jeopardy?
You'd have to think there's some risk there for him. Yeah, it's keeping his job anyway. But were there any other games? Oh no, so I guess to recap then, right? I was 3-0, now 21-18 on the season. The 0-3, just a game behind 20 and 19. Still
19.
above 500
A little
though.
bit 500, but I had that nice cushion and now it's all gone. And now I'm looking up at you, just like I am on the big board, where you were a winner again, and I was a slight loser this week overall. So I believe on the ESPN spread pool, you're in the 97th percentile. So you're in what you should be a professional gambler. You should stop whatever the scientific silliness you're doing, Dr. Scaff, and move
Go all in.
to Las Vegas,
I'm gambling.
at least Reno, and really tear it up on the sports
Yeah,
books.
I can be sports betting in Kansas. Like my office is in Kansas. I could be
Oh, I guess you could do that too.
doing that from the app anyway.
I'd rather see you in a visor chopping a cigar.
Yeah, that would be more entertaining.
Um,
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was up another 850 this week on the big board, which is a 22% profit on the week of bets anyway, which is not too shabby.
Not shabby at all.
Like you were down less than $200, so it was
So
only
I
like
was basically
5%.
and part of that was because I accidentally made the wrong bet. I picked for one of my locks of the week. I picked, of course, the Chiefs to win, and then I accidentally picked the spread. I picked the Chiefs to cover in my lock of the week, but then on the big board, I accidentally picked Green Bay to cover instead. I clicked the wrong box, but
I
that
thought maybe that was a little bit of not necessarily shenanigans, but maybe like you were trying to influence your, like you were so confident in your locks, but you're not confident in your big board picks. So you picked opposite the lock because you knew on the big board if you lost it that it would guarantee
win
that
on the
you got it
lock.
right on the lock.
Maybe I should be thinking that way, but I
So
wasn't. This week I'm going to be going a little bit differently because I think I'm in desperation mode now. So like I'm almost going the full Costanza in I'm making locks that I would never make. Maybe this is a mistake, but we'll come to that segment shortly. Do you want to take a break here?
well, I was just gonna ask real quick though, were there other games from this last week before we maybe put a nail in the week 13 coffin? Uh, were there other games that you found interesting that we have not already talked about?
I think one game that was not interesting, but the final score was interesting was the Chargers New England game
That was
where
the game I was going to talk about if you didn't bring it up.
the Patriots now have surrendered 10 or fewer points in 3 consecutive games and have lost all 3 of them. The first team to ever do, at least the first team since the 1930s to do so. So that's
Crazy.
pretty. So I guess you can say Belichick still has defense down
No,
pretty well. So it's just the offense that needs a
there
lot
isn't any.
more.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
What I thought was particularly spectacular about that game though was the Chargers were favored by 5.5 points, and they covered the spread, even though they got 2 field goals and that was it, and that was enough
6.
to cover the spread. They did the absolute minimum, and we both picked that game. I think believe fully correctly. I think we had the Chargers covering the spread and winning,
And the under.
and that was like it wasn't really an interesting game at all. But it was funny that we both thought it was going to be a low scoring game, and we thought the Chargers would cover. I don't think we would have picked an exact score of 6-0 though. I don't
No,
think. Would you have picked a 6-0 score on an
no. I was
exact,
thinking. I thought maybe 13-6, something like that, or
yeah,
something low, 20-13, maybe.
comfortably under the over under number anyway,
Yeah.
but not that low though. I mean, the Chargers seem to be pretty ineffective offensively for a while now this season, but that's exceptional.
Yeah. There were also a couple of interesting games. The Monday night game turned out interesting because, we have Trevor Lawrence getting injured for Jacksonville. It doesn't seem to be as severe an injury as like Joe Burrow's was, but we also have a backup quarterback in Jake Browning playing very well for Cincinnati to carry that victory. So, the teams that the Chiefs are going to play later in the year, Cincinnati, they thought, oh, well, without Burrow, they're not going to be very good. But maybe with Browning, the Chiefs' schedule might be a little tougher coming up. Than maybe they had thought. So, this is one of those times where it seems like the offense probably needs to, get it in gear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many injured quarterbacks. Indianapolis is in playoff contention with their injured quarterback. We have, Minnesota the same way. We have lots of teams are playing pretty well. Cleveland playing pretty well despite uh,
Mm.
quarterback injuries, but it seems like there've been a lot of those. Fortunately, the Chiefs mostly haven't had, although Patrick Mahomes is on the injury report because he has a pec issue. Maybe he strained his pec in practice or in the game.
Oh, I
But
hadn't heard that
yeah, I think he's going to play. But I think that
yet.
he
Yeah.
was listed on the injury report.
I think some teams are probably on edge about listing injuries because who
Oh
was
yeah,
it?
the
There was somebody,
Joe Burrow situation because
right?
he had that brace on his wrist. It
Maybe a
looked
soft
like
cast on his wrist and was not
yeah,
on the injury
and
report.
then of course he gets injured soon after that. So
And
was it
it was that
the wrist?
wrist
Yeah,
that
was he
was
aggravating
in the
an
game.
existing injury, or was it just a coincidence? But
Yeah.
yeah,
But I mean that is a finable offense, I believe, in a league for, not reporting injuries.
yeah, we're trying to
Yeah.
screw over the
Bad.
gambling community.
Right. Yes. All right. Before we move on to baseball, I think we're going to take a quick break.
Yes.
I will be in a different setting, I believe. I'll be wearing the same clothes, but I'll be in a different place when we come back.
Okay.
Is that
Sounds
right?
good, Dr. Scaff. I will see you shortly, and
Yes.
we will resume this Warning Track Power Hour.
Welcome back to the Warning Track Power Hour. Due to the magic of editing, we are now fast forwarded a couple hours, but you will have missed, all of that. You just get to skip right into where we left off. Mike, the Royals had a little bit of a mishap, I guess, for their season efforts. Uh, the winter meetings now, we've had the draft lottery. The Royals were at a top 3% chance at the number one pick, and it did not quite go that way. They fell from, you know, good chance at number one, two, or three, fell all the way to six. Worst of the other two teams that were tied with, then too. So, disappointed with that outcome, or was that kind of what you expected to happen?
I guess both. I'm disappointed that the Royals always blunder when it comes to lottery. It seems like they can't figure out how to get one of their ping pong. Do they use ping pong balls in the MLB
I think so,
lottery?
but I've never actually seen the draft to like know what they do. I don't know if they actually have like it's just like combinations until like numbers correspond to something. I'm not sure how they do it, but they actually may have been lower if Washington had actually been eligible for a pick because I think Washington's numbers came up twice ahead
Mhm.
of the Royals too. So, but they had their picks voided because the new rules don't allow lottery picks too many seasons in a row, which Washington
Uh,
had the first 2 years. I think they had lottery picks, so they were excluded by rule from the lottery. So, and their number actually came up number one,
oh, that's too bad for
was
them.
was voided, which then gave the Guardians the number one pick. And then it came up number two again, also voided, and then an even lower percentage chance. Cincinnati Reds with above 500 record this season got the number two pick. So it seems that there is no advantage at all to being
What's the
terrible.
point? Yeah, I don't understand what the point of a draft is if you're not going to try to even the teams out because like, there's one team that doesn't need like the number one draft pick. It's the Guardians because they know how to draft people and develop
Yeah.
people wherever they pick, and they're usually this was a kind of a down year for them, I guess, but usually they're you know challenging or have the lead in the division and in the playoffs. So
Yeah.
and then the Reds were over 500 this year. They already had Ellie De La Cruz as one of their top prospects. Wasn't he the number one overall pick or one of the? He was a really high.
Maybe two
Uh,
seasons ago, but yeah.
yeah, so it seems it seems like there's a lot more volatility in the baseball lottery than there is in. He's an international free agent was De La Cruz, who's an international free agent.
Oh, okay.
But it seems like there's a lot. It seems like there's a lot more volatility in the baseball lottery than there is in the NBA lottery because it seems
Yeah.
like for the most part, the NBA draft lottery, the worst team usually ends up winning. It's like sometimes they get down to two or three, but like they never seem to drop much, and it seems rare that you know playoff teams get the number one overall pick,
Yeah,
or perennial playoff teams. At least,
right.
well, I guess the
Perennial
Spurs
playoff teams. Yeah,
were
none of the
perennial
teams were.
playoff team.
The MLB like excluded all the playoff teams from the lottery,
Yeah,
basically. But yeah, I mean, but the gap between when a draft happens and when the draft pays off for a team is much longer in Major League Baseball than it is in the NBA. So it seems like even more important to make sure the bad teams actually get help. Since it takes
yeah,
them
it's
longer to
it's
develop.
yeah.
So
So
it's
I
really unfortunate. That's what it was. I know you and we looked at the numbers, I think, during the year, and we thought it was dumb to tank in baseball because the odds weren't that skewed to favor the worst teams. It's like it doesn't seem like there's any like the real cutoff was like, somewhere around 10th worst. Like beyond that, your odds are pretty low. But Cincinnati was below that and still managed to get in. I think they were 12th worst and got the number 2 pick. So it didn't really make that much of a difference.
it seems like something we can blame the Astros for as well, because they cheated, but then they had like the most sort of notorious tanking strategy for years,
Yeah.
and they ended up becoming a really good team because they had like three consecutive, maybe four consecutive well over 100 lost seasons, and
Yeah.
they just
Multiple
and
number ones.
yeah, Baltimore kind of did the same thing, and now they're reaping the benefits. But now, of course, when the Royals are terrible, they don't get even when they were at their worst. I guess they only got the number one draft pick that one time, and it was the Luca Shaver year. Unfortunately, it was
Right.
not the Bryce Harper year or the can't miss
Manny
number one
Machado or
Machado, David Price
yeah.
type year. So it was, yeah, the Royals can't even do that well. And I guess Houston was also involved in a trade with the Royals over the past week. It was
Yeah.
Dylan Coleman got traded to Houston. Do you think the Royals are gonna? So they think they're winning on that trade?
I
But it's
mean, it
Houston.
seems okay. What they traded down to a double-A pitcher, who I think is the starter, but his strikeout numbers look pretty decent. But I mean, who knows? He's still 2 years away from being a major league player, you would assume. So I don't know. I don't know that they had much hope for Dylan Coleman because he had an 8 something ERA this season.
Yeah, that's not very good at all. Yeah,
So I mean, it seems like it's a good idea. You trade a guy that doesn't have much expectation for somebody that does, even if it's, you know, just a little more.
mhm.
So it seems like okay. Did you notice though what happened this last week though with the Jackson Coer trade to Atlanta? That Atlanta then packaged Coer with another failed major league prospect and they sent the two of them to Seattle for like Jake Kelenic, who was Seattle's like number one prospect 2 years ago, and then had a not so great start to last season, and then it was injured. Like he hurt himself, like he kicked something after getting upset, and then broke his foot. But they packaged the guy that we sent to them just a week ago for a much better prospect.
Stronger.
So the question that I would have for you is why did the Royals not know that Kelenic was available and traded Coer and some other failed prospect to Seattle
Kalanick.
or
Well,
Kelenic himself instead of like piddling around with these like minor league uh you know maybe has a shot at being a middle end guy versus a guy who is a major league outfielder at least anyway.
well, I guess the Royals did trade Coer for Kyle Wright, who was a
Yeah.
20, 20 plus game winner a couple of seasons ago, right?
Yeah. But injured and missing an entire year.
Yeah. So I guess um, yeah, there are pluses and minuses, I
Yeah.
suppose. But he was, I guess they had it. I guess so. It seems like Coer has been involved in some high profile trades then um for this season. I was looking at Kyle Wright's stats. Did he win 20 games, or did he just have no, he did win 20 games. He won 20 games in 2022. He was the first Braves pitcher since Russ Ortiz in 2003. So
Oh wow.
the season began, Wright had only 2 career wins before that. So um, I guess the Royals were dazzled by Wright's high win total, and so maybe the Royals did. We'll see what Kelenic versus Wright turns out to be in a couple of years, and see maybe win that trade, or probably Seattle when Jackson Kohler becomes a perennial All-Star pitcher and
So the Royals could lose like twice in the one deal.
strikes and he he eliminates the Royal playoff contention or something like that by pitching a
Right.
2-hit shot or something against the Royals.
Yeah, and then
But
Seattle ends up going to their first World Series or something like that, right?
yeah, definitely. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Or,
but
or it's Seattle against Atlanta next year's World Series.
yeah, but I guess at least the Royals are doing stuff. They got a Rule 5 player from the Yankees, who seems like he might be okay, pitcher. So it's
Oh no, wait. The guy the Royals traded what they got from in the trade was for Coleman was like a 19-year-old kid from the Dominican. The AA pitcher was the Rule 5 pick.
okay.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, he's the Rule 5 guy from the Yankees.
Yeah. Sauer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Matt Sauer. He was so I guess
those 2 guys. Yeah, that's right.
so for Rule 5 picks, they do just keep the order of last year's draft. So the Royals had the second pick because they were the second worst, or the second chance. I guess they have the second chance to pick. I guess you don't have to pick somebody for the Rule 5.
Yeah, I think most of the teams did not make a selection.
But if you're really bad, usually you probably think maybe you should.
Yeah, I think most of the top like 10 teams made a Rule 5 selection. And I think actually part of the Coleman trade was to free up the roster spot because the Rule 5 pick has to get a 40-man roster spot.
Yeah, it has to be a 25. It has to be on the active 25.
Yeah, but they have to have a 40-man roster spot
available.
Like, upon the draft, I believe. So
yeah,
the Coleman trade had to happen to get the roster spot open without just dumping somebody. But anyway, well, that's pretty much the Royals news, I guess. For the last...
At least they're sort of doing something. I guess they're doing something on the home front with the new stadium, but that's neither here nor there. But it seems like at least the stove is beginning to be at least lukewarm in the
it's on simmer, maybe.
On simmer, yeah. The NFL season is at a full boil, though, wouldn't you say, Dr. Scaff?
I would say so.
We want to talk about Week 14 action before we wrap up here this week. The Chiefs probably, I guess you would say probably one of the biggest games of the season, especially given the fact that they lost last week to the Green Bay Packers. Also because they're playing one of their big rivals, especially one of the historic AFC, recently historic AFC rivals in the playoffs, and that's the Buffalo Bills, led by Josh Allen. The Chiefs are 8-4. The Bills are 6-6, coming off a bye. This is, I think, the last several games in a row that the Chiefs play that they're playing against has more rest than the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So, Green Bay was coming off a mini bye, and the Chiefs played that Sunday night, or the Chiefs played on,
Monday night the previous week.
Yeah.
Against a Philly team that had also come off a bye.
Yeah, so the Chiefs didn't have the advantage coming off a bye, so they came off a bye, and then the Chiefs. No, actually, they had a week in between. When
they had the Raiders game.
Well,
Yeah,
the Chiefs played the Raiders in between, but the
yeah,
Raiders, yeah, I think that was the last game though that the Raiders or the Chiefs would not have. Well, I guess the Raiders had an extra day, so um, and that because the Raiders played Sunday and the Chiefs played on Monday, so
but
this is the third, at least the third consecutive game where teams are either coming off a bye or have had more rest than. I guess it's the fourth consecutive game. The fourth consecutive game coming off the bye or more rest
yeah,
than the Chiefs. So that's troublesome. Although a win, I think the Chiefs would basically knock the Bills almost out of playoff contention. They'd probably have to win out
I
uh,
think,
to
yeah,
fit. They'd have to be. I think 10-7 is going to be the lowest, unless you can win. Unless you win a division with a 9-8, but that doesn't look likely. Maybe in the AFC South, if Jacksonville kind of tanks, that the winner of that division could end up being 9-8, but. Um, yeah, it's going to be probably 10-7 to get a wild card spot in the playoffs. So two more losses would doom the Bills. Similarly, it's what's happening with the Bengals. They were they're 6-6 too, and with Browning playing so well last week against Jacksonville, the Chiefs' upcoming Bengals matchup in a couple of weeks, that looks a lot tougher maybe than it did a few weeks ago too. So the Chiefs really, I think, need this game pretty badly. So do you think they can pull it up? The Bills have beaten the Chiefs, I think, 3 consecutive times in the regular season at
yeah,
at Arrowhead.
yeah, because they like almost always play them in Arrowhead too.
I
Isn't
mean, at least, yeah, they've played
it?
Arrowhead the last 3 or 4 times, and
Yeah,
the Bills have won each of the regular season matchups at Arrowhead.
yeah. It doesn't seem like Buffalo is quite as formidable this season as they have been in the past, but you know that they have this game circled, and it means a lot to them because they're on the verge of being knocked out of the playoffs. So it's not gonna be easy. I think that they'll win. I think they're favored in the game by a little bit, but I don't know. The season's been so weird for the Chiefs that you know they seem like they're right on the edge of riding the ship, and it seems like they've done it a few times, but then they kind of come out flat again in the next game. So it's been not super smooth. I would guess. I guess you could say. Uh, and I think
Well,
there's a few more injuries that they're dealing with. Tranquil, I think, is maybe likely to be out with a
but
concussion
perhaps
protocol.
Bolton will be back though.
But Nick Bolton, I think, is practicing again, hopeful to be back on the field.
Yeah, Pacheco
Hopefully.
is out, but perhaps McKinnon will be back. So Pacheco he hasn't practiced this week yet. I don't think even Holmes has been banged up a little bit, like we mentioned earlier. So it's that time of year where most teams have injuries. The Bills have been banged up a lot. So secondary, especially the defense, Matt Milano's out, so he was their best linebacker, and some of their secondary is kind of dinged up. So this could maybe be a good game for the offense, but it's also, well, the Bills' offense might be better too because they've had another couple of weeks now to work with their new offensive coordinator Joe Brady after Dorsey has been out. So maybe they're going to be humming a little better. But I think I'm not sure if I've cursed the Chiefs or I have guaranteed them a victory because I decided to make the Chiefs one of my locks of the week this week. I picked them. The Chiefs are favored by 1.5 points at home, which means they think the Bills are a better team right now on a neutral field than the Chiefs. And so I don't really believe that's the case, but I think a lot of people are very down on the Chiefs simply because they had a bad game last week. And I think
Yeah,
looking at last week's game is not always a good measure of the next week. I think Mahomes rarely loses 2 in a row. So I think I like the Chiefs -1.5 as my first lock of the week.
I think my first lock of the week is the Rams Baltimore game on Sunday at noon. Uh, the Rams have been playing a lot better recently, scoring some points the last few weeks. Much improved over their previous several weeks play. And Baltimore is coming off of a bye. I kind of expect this to be a little bit of a higher scoring game. So I think I'm taking the over in this one. It's a pretty low number, only 40.5.
40.5. Yeah. Stafford's been healthier, so I think the Rams can score
Mm.
some points.
And they have
There.
Kyron Williams back too, which
Yeah, Williams is back.
seemed
They
to
have
spark the team offensively.
Nakua and Cup and Atwell. They have a lot of good receivers on the Rams, and I think the offense for Baltimore's been humming quite a bit. So
Mm.
I guess Mark Andrews is out. That's the biggest
Yeah.
problem that the Ravens have, but Jackson has been healthy, so you can think at least 40 points is only, all it has to be is 21-20, and it'll be over. So 24-17 would be over, scores like that. So I think that's a decent bet.
I'd
Over.
be a little surprised if somebody doesn't end up, one of the teams doesn't end up around 30, though. That's what I would expect to see. And then it's just the other team just has to be not terrible.
Yeah, the Baltimore's favored by 7.5, which seems a little high to me, but maybe not.
I mean, the Rams just put up 36 points against the Browns, who were supposed to have a good defense.
Yeah, the Baltimore, when they win, they really win usually. So it's
Yeah.
they're also a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team though too. They lose to the Steelers, they lose to the Colts.
Right.
Although the Steelers and the Colts have turned out to be decent teams, but they
Yeah.
aren't in the same league as some of the other teams.
But that unknown part of it is why I didn't want to pick this, the spread as one of my locks this week, but the over is what
I think the over is a good one.
so.
I actually went with an over as well as one of my locks of the week, and this over number is much higher than 40.5. It's actually an over a 51.5,
Ooh.
which is one of the highest over unders we've seen for a while. It reminds me a little bit of that Chiefs Rams game from a few years ago. I think that over under was like 54.5, and I think the Rams scored 54, the Chiefs scored 51 that game. So it was a really high over under in that game. This game is the Philadelphia Dallas game at Dallas. Dallas tends to score a lot at home. Philadelphia has a strong offense. Or even if it ends up being a blowout, like last week with the 49ers and Eagles, that was 42-19, so that was 61, so that would have been comfortably over. So I think
But they can sometimes give up a lot of points, though.
Dallas,
and Philly can sometimes give up a lot of points, and Dallas can also give up a lot of points. So
yeah. I think it'll be a shootout. I think it could be 34-27 wouldn't be an unlikely score. So that would be over. Even 34-20 would be over. So I like over 51.5 there.
I think just two weeks ago, I think what the Philly Buffalo game was like 37-34.
37-34, yeah.
Which
71.
Is well over the 1.5, but I mean, they've been playing games in those numbers recently against similarly talented teams. So
in Dallas, that was 41-36 over the Seahawks last game on Thanksgiving. So
against Seattle, who's not been
the game after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, but they haven't been that great of an offense even, and even they managed to score a lot of points. So that's a good sign for this being a shootout. I fully agree with you there. Okay. And a lot of the NFL games have been not just high scoring, but like really high scoring, like into the 70s, 60s, and 70s. So 51 points sounds like a big number, but it's maybe not actually that big of a number for an over under, especially as low as we've seen some of the numbers go, and then scoring less than that too, like the Chargers New England 6-0 game.
6-0 game. As we're recording this right now, the Patriots Steelers are 21. It's 21 New England 21, Steelers 18. So it's that game actually went over in the first half. There hasn't been very much second half scoring, but it's a 39, and the over under was 30.5. So
I have an insider that says that you were actually considering that as one of your locks, but because of this evening's Iowa State Iowa basketball game, maybe saved you from yourself and making that one of your locks. Is that
Yeah, it
accurate?
didn't save me from it on the big board when I put the under, but it did save me from making one of my locks. So I could not prognosticate that before
Post.
the game started. So I had to take it off the board. Fortunately for me, I don't make rules, but that's just how it happens. So luckily,
Yeah.
um, I was saved from myself there. But I think you thought it was going to be a low scoring game
On the
as
big
well.
board,
Neither of those
I
teams
also have the under.
are good at defense. It looks like now it's coming down to the wire, and the Steelers have it with a little over 2 minutes left on their own 41. So when we wrap this up, we might catch the end of the game. But so that was my second lock of the week. What is your second lock of the week, Dr. Scott?
My second pick this week is Detroit and Chicago are playing. Let's see, is that also a noon game? Yes, that is. Oh wait, that's the wrong week. Detroit Chicago. Yes, is a noon game. I've got Detroit on the road -3 favorite. I'm taking Detroit -3 in this game. I don't expect Chicago to do much. Still, Detroit's still like on the upper tier of the NFC. They're going to want to be making sure they try to like lock up their playoff spots. I don't see Chicago keeping
Yeah,
it close.
they have a lot of competition now with Green Bay and maybe even Minnesota heating up a little bit as potential playoff teams. So they need to keep pace in the NFC North, and especially this is a division game, so they certainly want to beat um, the Bears, and the Bears haven't really shown a lot of signs of being really strong. Although they've won a few games here and there, but they're better now maybe than they were at the beginning of the season, but they still
Chicago coming off of a bye, but
I like that bet too. Although Detroit has been a little bit troubling on the road. Uh,
yeah,
they have won. They did win last week against the Saints, even though that game ended up being very close. They, so I think you're on the right side there. It's not what I would lean as my lock. I would say, I actually have my third lock of the week is a game that's as the same point spread, and it also involves an NFC North team on the road, and this is the Minnesota Vikings at the Las Vegas Raiders. When I first looked at this, I thought the Raiders were going to be favored, and they're actually 3-point underdogs here. So I really like this bet, especially because Minnesota's quarterback situation seems to be a little bit in flux right now, whether it's going to be Joshua Dobbs or somebody else there. I think Justin Jefferson might come back this week, but I don't know how much that's going to help if you can't find a quarterback to throw to him. And I like the Raiders. They're 3-point underdogs at home against a Vikings team that I think is a little bit it's a little up in the air who's going to be the quarterback. And I think the Raiders they're coming up a bye, and they're a little bit better, I think, than what people give them credit for, especially with Antonio Pierce kind of coming in as coach. So I like the Raiders here especially with the 3 points. So I like the Raiders to cover at home +3. How about your third and final lock
my
of the week?
final pick is again betting against the New York Jets, who I've done many times this year. They're also at noon on Sunday playing Houston. Houston's a 3.5-point favorite in this one, which I think is close enough. So I'm taking Houston -3.5.
Houston -3.
Final lock.
I think that's a good bet. We don't even know I guess it's going to be Zach Wilson as the quarterback for the Jets, but he doesn't seem to really want to have the job, at least according to recent rumors anyway. And CJ Stroud has been playing pretty well. The defense for the Texans has been pretty good. So, if the offense can figure out the defense well enough to get the lead, I think that could be a good bet. The Jets do have a strong defense, but they have had such a weak offense. They've been a little bit like the Patriots in a lot of ways. not being able to hold teams down, but not being able to score really themselves. So, um, unfortunately, the Jets don't have Bailey Zappi as their backup quarterback to come in and replace. I guess they had Zach Wilson, who's maybe about as good as Bailey Zappi and about as good as Michael McCorkle Jones. It's hard to tell those three apart sometimes, I think, but well, we'll see how that turns out. I think you have a good shot there. Are there any other games that you're interested in watching next week?
I think there seems like there are some pretty decent games. I think the Seattle San Francisco game on Sunday afternoon should be pretty good.
The big spread, but I
Yeah,
think Seattle showed that they could hang with Dallas, so maybe they can hang with San Francisco as well.
and I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Jacksonville does now that Trevor Lawrence is likely to miss some time.
Yes.
How their backup has some NFL experience, but
Yeah, CJ hasn't had a lot of success though.
all that it didn't go all that well though. Yeah, so uh, yeah, a lot of teams dealing with injuries at the quarterback position specifically, and a lot of AFC playoff teams are dealing with quarterback
That's
injuries. So it's very strange, like to have this many injuries. And I know you and I, like at the beginning of the season, we previewed the quarterback situations at all the teams. I think we looked at something like 110 rostered quarterbacks in the preseason, and at the most recent count, I think 55 of them had made at least one pass attempt on the season so far. So,
and I think a couple of teams players that weren't even rostered yet have made pass attempts. Joe Flacco is one of those.
Actually. I think it was just Flacco was the only
Just Flacco.
of actual quarterbacks.
Wentz hasn't made a pass. I guess hasn't made a pass yet. As Stafford's backup, but one of his other games that involves sort of backup quarterbacks of AFC playoff contenders is the Indianapolis Cincinnati game. I think is an interesting one where we have Gardner Minshew against Jake Browning, and Browning had a wonderful game last week against Jacksonville. Is that just a flash in the pan, or is he maybe a solid quarterback, or does maybe this show if Browning can be just as good as Joe Burrow, does that just mean Joe Burrow's a system quarterback in Cincinnati, because he has all world receivers to throw to, and it seems like maybe anybody can thrive if they're throwing to Jamar Chase and T Higgins. It turned out that some of the weapons for LSU, like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, was not a can't miss NFL prospect. He's just another guy. So maybe I don't know. I think I'm a little early calling Joe Burrow out, but I don't really care for Joe Burrow, so maybe that's why I don't care for his demeanor and his Kevin McAllister looks. So but I think if Browning can be successful, that's an interesting problem for Cincinnati to have.
I had one question for you too about the dueling Monday night games. Do you like that? Having two Monday night games at the same time slot? Or does that seem unnecessary?
No, I don't like that at all. I would, if I could do it, I would have as many different time slots as possible for games. So you could essentially, if you really wanted to, you could watch every NFL game. That would be my ideal, because I would watch so they should have They should have early Thursday night, late Thursday night, early Friday night, late Friday night. Especially now, because there's no more high school football, so they should be having Friday night games. That's what the idea was. Well, we don't want to interfere with high school football, because that's America, as Americans apple pie. So we don't want the NFL games there. But now, high schools are all done. Now we're playing on Saturdays because colleges are done. So why not play on Fridays too? And so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So they could have, 5 days a week basically that could have football games. And if you have
like 13 or 14 like distinct time slots out of that.
Yeah, you could at least have two. Thursday, Friday, Monday, you could have two for sure.
Yeah.
So that's 6, and then Saturday, Sunday, you could have at least three.
Maybe a fourth if you're really,
If you want an early morning game to start at
yeah, you could
10,
overlap
10 o'clock,
or something. Yeah, you
10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and
yeah,
then even 10 o'clock. You could have five slots. You could have um you could have five slots on Sunday and
yeah,
Saturday. So you could have, especially if it's a late coastal game, you could have every game being played because it's set. It would be 16. Two Thursday, two Friday, two Monday.
yeah.
So that's six, and then five Saturday, Sunday, five each Saturday, Sunday. That would be 16. So
More,
every
yeah.
team could play in its
In
own.
a unique time slot.
So that's what I would do if I were the NFL, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, can you come up with 16 different networks that would host, or would you have like the same
Well, I think that the same
network
networks
for
would
most of them?
want
Yeah,
to host all of it because that's what brings in the ratings. So like you already have CBS and Fox and NBC and ESPN and the NFL network. So that's five networks that already host the games. I think they could divide those among themselves. I think
then Amazon gets the
and
Thursday
Amazon
night
too. So
game.
you get an Amazon game. So
Yeah,
I think Amazon would love to have a doubleheader on
yeah. You
Thursday.
could get like a Univision or a, like two more at least. Then each network could have two games that they host.
Yeah,
Right.
TNT, I
Yeah.
guess maybe would want like some cable
Yeah.
network, but yeah, Netflix, who knows? Would
They
they
really should do something like Univision now for one of them to have like a Spanish language broadcast game only.
only
Like
in Spanish?
so like
Yeah.
you'd have to watch it in Spanish. I think they should do it. Why not? It's more of an outreach kind of thing that way too.
Well, we
Maybe
have
some Americans might learn a little Spanish too.
yeah. Well, they like or would you have a mandatory Nickelodeon slime game? Would that be?
Fine. That's what they want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we were coming up with lots of great ideas here tonight. Do we have any other great ideas before we sign off?
I've reached my quota of great ideas for the day.
Well, I think our 16 time slots in a week is something that the NFL should definitely check out, especially later in the season if they want every game really to shine on its own, which I think it could.
And if they go to that, we have it on video now here. We'll submit
We
this back to the league saying like we obviously came up with this idea.
This is our intellectual property. We should be handsomely rewarded for our thoughtfulness and our research. Yeah,
We
yeah.
thought of it. It's our idea. Yeah.
And then they could have the Sunday, Monday, Happy Days kind of song. Thursday,
Yeah.
they could just skip Tuesday, Wednesday, and
Yeah.
you know,
Tuesday, Wednesday, other days. And then
Tuesday, Wednesday,
skip those days.
mild, so day looking forward to the later games days. But yeah, that would be, and then they could shuffle it so like the teams that played on Thursday would play, the following
Friday. It's
Friday.
one day.
Move it up a day or so, or you could figure it out. It would be so it wouldn't be too disadvantageous for teams. You wouldn't have a team play on Monday night and then have to play again on Thursday night or Friday night. You can those at least wait till Saturday or Sunday. So but these are great ideas. These are the type of great ideas we always have here on the One Direct Power Hour. And if you watch this, you're one of the select few who has really gotten on the ground floor and has seen how great this program can be. So we appreciate your viewership, your listenership, and we hope that your teams do very, very well, even if they aren't singled out as the lone game of their own time slot. But the Chiefs will play on the national time slot for CBS at least. It'll be their big national game with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. So most of the nation will be tuned in to that game probably. Although I guess San Francisco and Seattle is a pretty big game that people might be watching as well. So in the afternoon session, but we have lots of great games in store. Next week we have the NFL season is really heating up, and we'll see what the playoff situation is. next week again on the Morning Track Power Hour, and we'll see if the Chiefs can maybe get closer to that all very important number one seed that they've been really wanting to have and have had quite a bit over the past several years. So that's what we have to look forward to. We do have, I guess, our regret is that our show couldn't last longer, but such is life. We have to end it now, and as always, I am Dr. Michael Werman, Esquire. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff, PhD. We are the Morning Track Power Hour. Please like and or subscribe to our YouTube channel or our podcasts on a variety of different services. So you can find us in many places on the good old interweb. So until then, next week, until then, we wish you a good day.